don't know. Fonz was like hardcore. He's from East St. Louis, and you again coming from rough neighborhood. You gotta be ready to fight. You gotta be ready to hold your own. I mean, you look at his family, his children today, him as a man, how he presents himself. You know, I always say Notre Dame doesn't necessarily make you, but it brings out what's already in you. And you look at Monty, you look at LaFonso, you look at Chris Zorich, you look at, Tony Rice, Jerome Bettis, Tim Brown. It wasn't that Notre Dame made them into the men that they are. A Skylar Diggins, Caleb McBride, these young guys, that are coming out now, Ronnie Stanley, Jalen Smith. It brings out what's already there in you. Because, to come through Notre Dame, it requires, like I said, a level of toughness, mental toughness, and for the student athletes, a mental and physical toughness that it had to be in you already for you to make it through. I look at our young student athletes today that are playing professionally and just look at, the level of professionalism, the commitment to doing things the right way. I never again, like I said, it's not that Notre Dame created that in those individuals. It enhanced and brought out what was already there. And I just look at and marvel at the men and women that represent Notre Dame. Someone I'm a big fan of. This young lady had lupus. She's older now, but Shannon Box. She had that toughness before she got to Notre Dame. But you look at her now, World Cup champion, veteran soccer player. I mean, and just the mentorship that she's done in her time, but she overcame a debilitating disease and flourished. I mean, I've always marveled at her and her, just that level of commitment and the toughness. You're not going to come through Notre Dame unless you have a level of toughness. You won't make it. If you're not tough mentally and physically, and I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, Notre Dame was perfect, because it was by no means. I had a rough time there. I almost left. After my sophomore year, I thought about transferring because, it was tough. I wanted to go back home. Fortunately enough for me, I had a mom and dad that said, we don't quit. You stick it out, you tough it out, and you make it work. And I thank my mom and dad to this day for pushing me not to quit and to fight through it, because it helped me to become the man that I am today, become the father, the husband, the brother. And it set a tone. It set a tone for my mindset of how to compete and and by no means was my experience at Notre Dame a bed of roses. But it was those tough times, and not only those tough times, but it was those tough times and my teammates and, classmates, and in particular my wife, that helped me through, said, hey, I can do this. So when, hard times come now, which they do, we all have difficulties. We all have challenges. I have a mindset that I can overcome it because I've done it. I've done it before.
That's awesome, man. And you know what? I totally agree, because when you look at that, you don't appreciate victory until you fail. You don't appreciate love until you get hate or heartbroken or what have you. So when you go through those things, they definitely make you a better person. And like you said, LaFonso, when you come from St. Louis, or as we call here in Illinois, the boogie, you come from the boogie, all you know is fight, 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 fight. And when you are allowed to fight with a purpose, meaning I'm fighting for my future, I'm fighting for my education, all that, like you said, Notre Dame allowed him to stop fighting the world and start being prepared to fight with the world. So, yeah, I definitely get that, man. And shout out to Notre Dame and everybody who's there, because it does take a village. It does take a group of people to create a culture of that magnitude. And I'm glad it helped you and people like LaFonso, because without that type of culture, who knows where you guys would have been. Like, a lot of parents would have let them go home and would have said, don't worry about it. You'll make it in another way. But I'm glad your parents didn't, man, because there's a lot of emphasis, whereas we just go, oh, no, it's going to be okay, and it's not going to be okay. But with that being said, let's talk about some of the good times in Notre Dame. Give me the moment when you realize, because I know as a former athlete, not on that level of Notre Dame by no means, but as a former athlete, I can remember moments in my life where I just went, okay, I'm not working hard. I'm just doing what I do. When did you have that similar moment in your career at Notre Dame? Or do you remember that similar moment?
Oh, yeah. It was the summer. I was in summer school going into my senior year. I had little hits of success here and there. And, it was right after school. So I'm headed back, coming back to campus, and for summer school. And again, it was voluntary mandatory. So we had, summer school was, you had to come to summer school when you could work out. So I come in and I'm like, I have to make a conscious decision here. What am I going to do? Yeah, I can, finish, get my degree and just make it through. Or am I going to really push myself to another level? And I worked my butt off. I mean, I can remember coming back to the dorm ready to pass out. Because, work till I was, because I had a pretty solid spring, going in. That spring semester doing spring ball, that was probably the most success that I've had at Notre Dame on a continuous basis that was outside the public eye. And, you go home and you're kind of feeling good about yourself, but I had to check myself. It was like, did you leave anything undone? And I had to look at myself a little closer. It was like, I could have done better. I could have been a little more intense, a little more focused. Paid attention a little more in the classroom, but also paid a little more attention in the film room. I started studying film more, start critiquing defenses, learning how to read defenses, and just stepped it up. And the biggest thing that really happened to me over the course of time, I really started to pray and seek God. I had never really. I grew up Pentecostal, and I've always believed in God and believed in Jesus Christ as my Savior, but I was just doing enough to get by spiritually. Okay. And I had to check myself again on that level. So it was that spring going into my senior year, the end of the spring and going into my senior year that summer, I dedicated myself spiritually and physically to just really be the best that I could. And not look around and say, well, hey, I don't have this, or nobody did this, or, I got shorted here. I just said, hey, I'm not going to make any excuses. I'm not going to allow excuses to say, what am I going to do, who I'm going to be. I said, this is about me, not anybody. I'm not going to challenge. All right, look outside for a challenge. I'm going to look within. I dedicated to look within, and had the best season of my career at any level and on any side of the ball, and it really amounted to me being committed physically, spiritually, and in some degree emotionally. I decided, I'm going to make this, be a part of the Notre Dame community instead of just kind of being on the periphery, to get involved in some of the activities on campus and to be a part of the community. I mean, I really kind of isolated myself growing up. Going through class, I didn't really interact with anybody outside of my teammates and, my wife, a girlfriend at the time. And, I said, hey, let me just at least engage. And it was a magical year by any stretch. I mean, I didn't, now that I look back, I was like, wow, that was pretty good. But it all started because I looked within, I challenged myself, and I didn't look for excuses.
Okay. I remember, as I said at the top of the show, I remember that year. And I remember, how that year went, the ups and downs, and I remember games. And I want to talk about some of the bigger games and one of the bigger touchdowns in NCAA history, if you ask me. I mean, of course, it's big in your career. The unconscious touchdown. Do you remember that? And how did that go?
Now, I can remember watching it after the game.
Okay.
So, I've told this story a few times. We ran option. Rick Meyer was the quarterback. Rick was a heck of an athlete, but Rick was not a big fan of the option or getting hit. So I was pretty sure he was going to pitch the ball because, again, the quarterback, you're supposed to kind of press the edge and really push it. Rick, I knew, when the end showed, ball is going to get pitched. He wasn't going to take a lot of hits. So I saw the safety coming down into the hole to fill that alley, and my mind said, hey, I got to make at least one guy miss. That's my job. Our offensive line, to this day, I don't think I've ever been a part of an offensive line that good at that level. Collegiately, I mean, our guys could block 13 guys if they had to, because I never worried about getting hit in the backfield. So I, knew I was going to take a shot, but again, my whole point was, like I said, make at least one guy miss. I made a few guys miss and get down to near the goal line. I take a shot in the helmet. And again, this is based on what I remember from what I saw the next day. Because after the game, they were asking me about it, and I didn't remember.
Wow. Because, I saw it, and the way I remember it, you shook about 5 tackles that day. And the guys I was watching the game with, we were like, this dude is amazing. And, I mean, help me understand the Michigan rivalry, the Notre Dame thing. What led up to that? Because
we always
the Michigan Notre Dame game, right?
Yeah, that was big.
That game every year. Yeah, every year.
To be honest with you, I'm glad they're back on the schedule this year because that was our first game of the season. We're playing Michigan, whether it was in South Bend or up in Ann Arbor. It was just a hard-fought game. I mean, you're talking about two legendary programs, hard-nosed. This is, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You know it's going to be a physical football game. I always loved playing Michigan. Desmond Howard, good dude, but it was just something about that. When those two teams got together, not necessarily bad blood, but there was no love lost. You knew it was going to be a physical, hard-hitting challenge and with two teams that wanted to